Michelle and I greet you in the matchless and marvelous name of Jesus Christ our Lord.
We are so thankful to the GCI Greater Cleveland Interfaith Alliance for affording us this opportunity to present, we believe, a relevant discussion this morning. St. Paul AME Church has partnered with the Cleveland Police Department in this workshop series entitled Justice Matters.
Today's focus is primarily on the issue of what to do when you are stopped or approached by the police. This workshop will discuss in length what should be done and what not done in the police encounter.
So many of us know that these are volatile times and need to take a proactive approach in addressing these questions and concerns to our community, loved ones, parishioners, and society faces.
Someone had said it best: everyone wants to go home. We pray that this workshop will be helpful and potentially save lives. All lives do matter. We would now like to call on Jill Dyer with further comments and instructions.
Good morning. This is our second session in Justice Matters. We will be discussing today what to do when the police stop you. It is not just important that we go home safely, it's important that they go home safely too. We ask that if you have any questions that you type them in to your Facebook or YouTube comment section. Questions will be answered appropriately. If there is not time to answer the rest of your questions, you will see them in the notification following this production. We'd like to thank the GCIA, which is the Greater Cleveland Interfaith Alliance, the Cleveland Police Department for offering their officers, St. Paul AME Church, the Interfaith Council, and Janice Small and Associates. At this time, I am going to introduce Officer Donna Brown, who will be more than pleased to help us with this process. Officer Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Dyer. I want to first introduce myself and my colleagues that are here today with you. I'm Officer Donna Brown. We're with the Cleveland Police Department, and we're assigned to the Bureau of Community Relations Unit. We have Officer Lynn Hampton here with us today. We also have Officer Jones, and we have Officer Harper and Officer Morris. And before we start, on behalf of the police department, we want to thank you, Pastor Thomas and Bill Dyer, for having us here, allowing us to be part of this community outreach, to be able to go out into the community. And thank you for everyone that's tuning in on Facebook Live and through YouTube today, to bring awareness and to educate our citizens on not only our citizens, but to also educate police officers on how to have positive police encounters with the people we serve. And so I want to again thank you for having us here today and making this happen. I want to first start off by saying that our police encounters, okay, they fall into mainly these categories. We have traffic vehicle stops, we have street stops, and those street stops are, if you're walking, if you're bicycling, etc. And then we also have residential home encounters. So today will be a part one series of Do You Know What to Do When Stopped the Police? And we're going to do traffic stops today. All right. And thank you again for tuning in with us and challenging us to be able to do this. What you want to take? Okay. All right. So again, we're going to start with traffic stops. Let me ask you a question out there. Why do you think police officers conduct traffic stops? So I want you to think about that. Why do you think that is? The main reason why we conduct traffic stops is to enforce the law with voluntary compliance from our citizens that we serve. Okay. That goal is to reduce the numbers of injuries and deaths that occur on our roadways. That's why we do traffic stops. Well, let me ask you another question. When you see an officer pull you over and you're getting nervous, when you're getting nervous and you're seeing those lights and sirens in your rear view mirror, what's going through your mind during that time? All right. So let me we were expecting to maybe have some youth with us here today, but due to COVID and social distancing and restrictions, we don't have them here today. But for any of you young guys out there tuning in, I want you to be thinking of these questions when I'm throwing it out there, especially if you're a new driver, okay, a young driver, all right? Let me ask you this, all right? When a police officer pulls you over, there are some things that we expect from our citizens, okay? But you also expect things from the officers in return, all right? We need you and your passengers on the road to remember, you need to go home safe.
That's okay.
You need to go home safe, okay? Your passengers also need to go home safe, but officers also need to go home safe as well, okay? So what can you do to comply with the laws that are written when you are pulled over? Okay, what can you do?
Yes.
Here's what you can do to help, all right? Always have proper, valid identification with you, on you. Proof of insurance, which is valid, that's what we're asking, and your vehicle registration. Make sure you always have that with you, okay? We also want you to pull over safely to the side of the road. If feasible, pull over to the right, okay? We need you to remain calm, okay? Stay inside your vehicle and keep your hands on the steering wheel. If you have passengers with you, tell them to be quiet, that you're the driver and you're gonna do all the talking, all right? Your passengers too. We want their hands to be in plain view. If your passengers wanna put them up on a dash, keep them on their lap, but we wanna be able to see those hands in plain view, okay? Because traffic stops are the most dangerous stops to police officers. So again, we want to be able to have voluntary compliance with our citizens to make it safe for them and to make it safe for us. All right. So right now, I'm going to turn this over to Officer Hampton. And yes.
Good morning. My name is Officer Hampton. It's a pleasure to be presenting to you today. And we're going to continue on with our talking points in reference to what to do when stopped by the police. We want to keep this to, in a situation to where we learn, we exchanging information, we communicating, so we can get a better understanding on what to do when stopped by the police, because a lot of encounters that we tend to hear about or you see on TV, it may not be the actual, way things are being done. But these are some of our division of Cleveland's way of approaching some of the stops. Now, when an officer approaches you, you want to make sure that you keep your seatbelt fastened. So a lot of times, we tend to get a little nervous, and I get a little nervous myself sometimes. We get a little nervous, and we tend to go looking for documentation, or you unfasten your seatbelt and things of that nature. And you don't give your officer a chance to know that you were wearing your seatbelt, and that could end up in a citation for you. So you don't want to do that. So let the officer see that you were wearing your seatbelt, and then just kindly and calmly wait for the instructions at that particular point. Now, to give you a little insight on maybe what's in the mind's view of an officer, and I want to give you a scenario to where it's night. It's 4 individuals. They may be in the vehicle. Okay, so what you want to do is try to eliminate some of the officer's anxieties and eliminate yours as well. So what you want to do if it's nighttime and the officer pulls you over, one good talking point would be to turn on the interior light of the vehicle. Now, what does that do for? Now it gives the officer a chance to see what's going on in the individual, and it reduces or decreases his anxiety, in approaching the car. Because you got to think about it. Put yourself in that particular situation. where it's nighttime. You got 4 people, 3 to 4 people into the vehicle, and you're approaching the car. See, the officer himself don't know what could have just transpired as far as a crime is concerned. So some people might be a little have a little anxiety themselves when the officer is approaching, or he might do anything to right. He might as well put his hand on his weapon. But you have to put yourself in that position because he don't know what he's getting into, who's in the car, as far as approaching the car. So we just want you to understand that could be the situation. Is not a situation to where the officer is being aggressive or anything like that. It's always safety first, and it's officer safety. So if you cut on the interior lights of the car, that gives the officer a chance to see what's going on. We are taught in the academy that hands can kill you. So put your hands on the steering wheel and have all the passengers in the car be calm, relax. You can put your hands on the back seat of the car or whatever, and then of the car, or some people can go even putting their hands up on top of the dash and then the roof of the car. But you want to remain calm, and what we want to do is we want to get you to think in this particular presentation, to think as if you was the officer. Well, that's what we want to put you in his mind's eye. So we want to make everybody uncomfortable, and we want to make this particular encounter be a positive encounter. Okay. Don't make any sudden movements. Now, when you do that, you're causing some anxiety as far as the officer is concerned. Wait for the officer to give you some instructions. If you know that your wallet or your registration is in the glove box, wait for the officer to give you the instructions when he asks you where is it, and then slowly move towards that particular direction. So making movements. So I know a lot of times when you can be nervous, and you and your passengers can be moving about in the car, that just brings extra anxiety as far as the officers is concerned. So we want to reduce that the best as we can by just remaining calm, being still, and waiting for the officer to give you the instructions. Because again, the officer does not know who is in the vehicle. Something could have just happened in that particular area as far as a crime is concerned. And so he may be have a little bit more anxiety in reference to, because something could have just happened in that particular area. So no sudden moves, listen to the officer and follow instructions and that like that. And then more than likely that particular encounter will end up to be a positive one. Now, some people, may feel a little threatened or feel that your rights may be violated and things like that when the officer asks you to exit the vehicle. Like I said before, something could have happened in that particular area where the officer asks you to exit the vehicle, but he has the right to exit the vehicle, have you exit the vehicle, because again, he might receive some information, some intelligence from somewhere about something that's going on, and you might be, hey, you think this officer may be just picking on you and asking you to leave exit your vehicle. Why is he doing this to me? Why is he doing this to me? Well, you have to take into account he might have received some information that warrants him to ask you to exit the vehicle, or it could just be just for safety reasons. So he has the right to ask you to exit the vehicle. So the whole point of this presentation, the matter is try to remain calm, and we want to make you understand and be aware of what may be going into the officer's mind when he's conducting a traffic stop, because you may not know that traffic stops is one of the most dangerous positions that officers put themselves in, is a traffic stop. So that may be the reason why officers may react or respond at a certain way. And one note that I want to make right here is that no two officers may handle the same traffic stop the same way. So it all depends on the officer himself, his how safe he's feeling in that particular situation. you know he may not go through some of the same procedures as the last officer. So for you might say, well, this officer didn't treat me this way. This officer is treating me this way. It all depends on the individual officer on how he handles the traffic stop in order to make himself feel safe. So and when the officer being professional, as most of them are, they trying to leave the situation or the encounter on a positive note. So, and that's what this whole presentation is about, is trying to make this situation positive, and also, and quiet as it's kept, though, it's a relationship, and the communication is going on between the officer and the driver, you know. And if you can, the best thing that can happen at this particular point is that you leave that particular traffic encounter on a positive note, and that can be a beautiful thing, and it can work out for you, and we learn to respect each other. And next up, I'm gonna turn the mic over to Officer Jones.
Good morning. I'm Officer Anthony Jones. What I'm here to talk about is a lot of officers are different when they approach your vehicle. Me, myself, when I was on the road, I would explain to a person what I pulled them over for. You have some officers that might ask for ID before they even tell you what your infraction was. Like Officer Hampton said, me, myself, you might get a little nervous. Me being the police, sometimes I get nervous when the police pull me over, even though I am the police. But anyway, how can I explain it? Well, I would tell the person what they have, what I pulled them over for, and ask them for the ID. Some people get attitude. First thing I would tell them, hey, did I come up to the vehicle with attitude with you? I'm talking to you professional. And once I explain to them and give them their ticket or whatever they did, or I might just let them go once they explain to me the situation, with what the reason why they ran a light, stop sign, or whatever. And most of the people would tell me, hey, thank you, I appreciate it, I apologize, and I will let them go on their way. But it's up to the officer if they want to let you go. A lot of people, when they get citations, they get to going off, be like, well, what I'm getting a citation for and what did I do? So you have to sit there and explain it to them, the reason why they have received a citation. And either they can take it to court or they can just pay the fine. And a lot of people get to the attitude where they be like, oh, I ain't signing that ticket. It's not admission of guilt. It's just stating that you received your citation and just sign it. If you refuse to sign it, you'll risk the chance of going to jail. Do you want to go to jail? No. You want your vehicle towed? No. Just sign a ticket. When you go to court, then you can have your little trial with the judge and discuss everything. Reason why you feel you shouldn't have gotten a ticket. And if it's not clear, just ask again. Me, I will explain to a person why I pulled them over. I might have to explain it 2 or 3 times before they get the picture. But it's not hard. Just follow the law and do what the officer asks you to do. And if an officer is being disrespectful to you, if you feel he's not treating you fairly, you can request for a supervisor to come on scene where you can talk to them if you feel that. And also, if you want to record, you can record. There's no law against your recording. A lot of people think it's against the law to record. No. So if you feel you want to record, you can record the incident. And we also wear body cameras to record the incident too. That's to cover us, the driver, because we have had people will go tell and say, hey, this officer did such and such, and they would go review that camera and find out that it was not true. So after this, I'm going to introduce Officer Harper, and thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Officer Anthony Harper with the Cleveland Division of Police Bureau of Community Relations. As we continue this discussion on what to do with Stop by the Police, some of the key points that I'm going to touch on today are specifically a lot of drivers and a lot of citizens have a right to carry firearms. So one of our incidents where you may encounter a police officer, especially if you're a licensed concealed carry holder, first thing you need to do is let the officer know that you have a weapon. Although we are able to determine whether or not you're a carrier when we run your license plate, it's your duty to report that to us, not to just assume that we know that you are a licensed carrier. Prime example is, let's say I have a CCW and my son might drive my car. And so if a police officer pulls over that vehicle, they notice that that registration and the owner of that vehicle has a CCW. However, the owner may not be in that vehicle. So if you are the owner of that vehicle, or you may drive a vehicle that is not registered to you with the CCW permit, it is your duty to let the police officers know that you do have that weapon. What's also important with that is not only that you let them know that you have it, but you let them know where you have it. Do not reach for that weapon at any circumstance. As an officer, we want to make sure that you are safe, and we want to be safe. So make sure that you follow those guidelines. Sometimes, officer, they'll take your permit card, they'll verify, make sure that everything matches, make sure that the firearm that you possess is the correct one, and you should be fine with that. No issues should arise after that. Some of the things that you may also encounter with a traffic stop, understand that as police officers, we have a right and you are bound by law to exit the vehicle. So if I ask you to step out of your vehicle, you have to exit the vehicle. That unfortunately is not up for debate, but we also have a right to pat you down for officer safety, or if there's a suspicion that you may have a weapon on you. That goes a little deeper into other laws and rules, but that general statement of leaving the vehicle, you must do, and I am allowed to pat you down for my safety, just to make sure that we can get through this encounter with no issues. Traffic stops are very dangerous for police officers for a variety of ways. The traffic or the driver of a vehicle is unknown to us. You may commit a violation and we're aware of that, but we have no knowledge of you. We don't know where you're coming from. We don't know if you're a criminal. So we have to approach every situation cautiously until we have a reason to excuse me, understand that, okay, this driver is probably safe, or this driver is not wanted for any crimes or haven't committed any crimes. Then we can proceed through our traffic stop with no issues. Our golden rule, as a citizen, you're expected to be treated with respect by the police, and you deserve it. But also as police officers, we're expected to receive a certain level of respect as well, not creating a hostile environment, understanding that the traffic stop, while it is unpleasant, it may have been necessary, but in my opinion and my experience as a police officer, most drivers dictate the outcome of that traffic stop. So if you're following our rules and you're being respectful, for me, that's a good indication that you deserve a warning. And not just to say I'm going to give you a ticket because you were rude. There's obviously there's other factors in that. But as a citizen and as an officer, we both owe it to each other to treat each other with respect. And further in this presentation, if you do feel that you're disrespected, we will cover options that you are entitled to as a citizen if you feel that a police officer has not treated you the way that you should be treated. With that being said, I will turn this back over to Officer Brown. I do appreciate you in this. Oh, I'm sorry, Officer Hampton. I do appreciate your time in this presentation. Thank you.
Okay, now the fun starts. All right, we're gonna go through our first scenario. Okay, we want to have a little fun with this, but we want it to be educational as well. All right. The first scenario involves a topic probably for discussion that's I see is permeating across the country, across the city, and dealing with what Officer Harper had talked about, the CCW, carrying concealed weapon. And a lot of people may have a lot of questions about how to handle it, but this scenario is basically going to talk about the particular driver having a CCW permit and also having the weapon in her possession or in their possession at this particular time. So we're going to go through the scenario. We may stop a little bit into the scenario, and I may address a couple tactical situations. I may address, and ask a question on what you may do, what you would do in this particular situation, or is it something that maybe I missed, or something that we can add to this particular scenario that, like I say, what our whole goal is if we leaving in a positive, uneventful situation. And that's the goal and the purpose here. So what I'm going to do is set this up for you. And basically what's going on right now is the officer is sitting somewhere in an inconspicuous type of setting, and he see a traffic violator. Okay. He activates his overhead lights and his siren, and he approaches the vehicle. Now, before he approaches his vehicle, he runs the plate. That's the most safe way to deal with this the traffic situation. Is you before you get out the car, you want to run the tag because you don't know who or what you're approaching. So some of you guys might have a little anxiety going on because why haven't the officer approached me at this particular time? Boy, so this is just to give you a little insight on why the officer hasn't approached you. It may be 5 minutes or so before the officer approaches you. He's running your tag and getting some preliminary information on you before he approaches the car. In this particular situation, your driver's information came back, but also the radio gave the officer information on that you are a CCW permit holder. All right. So there's some things going to transpire at that particular time, and we may stop the scenario and address some of those things as well in the midst of the scenario. I proceed. Excuse me, ma'am. Could you go down there?
Oh, yes, sir.
How you doing?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you.
Yes, I'm Officer Hampton. You have your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, huh?
Oh, sir, yes, sir. Can I get it on my purse? Please, it's on the seat.
Let me see. Okay.
I wanted to let you know that, first of all, I have a CCW permit, and I also have my weapon on me.
Okay, all right. And your weapon and your information is in your purse?
Yes.
Is that what you say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, the reason I stopped you, man, is because you did a left turn during the hours that is not permitted to do a left turn right there. So at this time, and since you told me that you do have a CCW permit, I would like to ask you, could you step out the car and
Do you want me to get my weapon?
no, not at this time. I want you to touch your person this time. I just want you to step out of the car, and I'm just gonna have you for a brief moment. Just go to the back of your car there, and then I'm gonna retrieve your weapon and your information. Okay?
Okay, yes, sir.
Now you can see at this particular time, I didn't want her to touch the purse or the weapon. Now, see, some officers may handle this particular situation different, because you might have a male that might have the weapon on his side right there. So I've talked to officers in traffic and some in the academy, they handle the situation different. So if an officer handles the situation different, don't mean that he's doing anything wrong or he's asking a little bit more of you than the next officer. It all depends on that officer's intuition and level of safety at that particular time. So because she had the weapon in her purse, along with her other documentation in her purse, and she had it on the seat. So I decided to let her step out the vehicle for officer safety, and I'll decide to retrieve the purse and then take it to the particular driver. And at that time, we'll make an exchange of information as far as the weapon is concerned. So it's very important that for officer safety, you know, some officers may not allow or let the driver or the person that's possessing of the CCW to actually touch the weapon. Okay, and then right after the scenario, we're gonna go into a little bit about the laws of how you deal with that, and what some of the violations that could take place if you don't follow the officer's instructions. So at this time, I'm gonna continue with some of the scenario. Okay, ma'am. Okay, well, what I'm gonna do right now, ma'am, I'm gonna remove the weapon from your purse, and then at this time, I will give you back your purse
Oh, yes, sir.
so you can give me the rest of the documentation. Thank you, ma'am.
You said give you the other info? Oh, here you go. I have a valid license and proof of insurance and my CCW permit.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, at this particular time, what I did was I retrieved the weapon, and then, you know, so since she does say that she does have a CCW permit, what I would do, I would go back into my zone car, and I would just maybe compare the serial numbers on the weapon along with the permit, you know, then run my checks, and then we approach the vehicle at this particular time. So I will have her go ahead and take a seat back into her vehicle, and I'll run my checks. All right. Now, after running my checks in this particular scenario, after running my checks, I found out that she's a good driver. All right. And so she was very cooperative. You know, she obeyed all of my instructions. You know, the level of anxiety that I might have had when I ran the plate and it said that she was a CCW holder. Now all of my anxiety has decreased, you know, because she was cooperative. She let me know, and the law states that she has to let me know that she is a permit holder, you know, so that level of anxiety decreased, and now we are operating and communicating on a level that is comfortable for the both of us. She's comfortable, I'm comfortable, okay? So we'll see how this scenario turns out. Okay, ma'am, I appreciate your cooperation, and I find out that you have a nice driver's record, you know, with further investigation. So at this particular time, I'm not going to give you a citation, but I'm going to give you, but I'm going to give you a warning, okay?
Yes,
I'll give you a warning, okay? And then all I'll ask of you is to just, you know, pay attention to those signs that, you know, those hours of the signs that you could turn left and just pay attention. That's all. Make sure you fasten back up on as far as your seatbelt is concerned. But also I want to let you know that I removed the weapon from your purse. It was just for officer safety. You
Yes,
know.
I understand.
Yeah, all right. I'm glad you
Thank you.
understand that. All right. So I'll return you back
Oh, thank
your
you.
weapon. Okay. And I just want to say to you, I appreciate that your cooperation in reference to this matter, and I wish you a lovely day.
And I want to thank you, and thank you for everything you do, and I want you to be safe out there, okay?
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thank
not
you.
giving me a ticket.
All right. Thank you. All right. In that particular scenario, it ended on a positive note.
Yep.
All right. And guess what? She didn't get a citation in that particular scenario because a lot of times the officer is feeding off how you respond to them. how you act, you know, the things that you say. So to our young audience out there, you know, it's important that you remain calm and you follow the instructions of the officer. You know, officers didn't wake up that morning just to give you a ticket. Okay, all right. We're here to actually have our community and our citizens, you know, obey traffic laws for safety reasons. I know we've all heard about different instances where people are getting into car accidents, you know, folks, pedestrians getting hit and things of that nature. So that's the purpose. That is the purpose and the one and only purpose of keeping all of us safe and keeping the community safe. That's what it's all about, you know. So at this particular time too, I'm gonna walk back over to the podium and I just wanna go over some of the do's and the don'ts when carrying a concealed weapon or having that permit. Because with having that permit, responsibility comes with it as well. We can't be careless in reference to it because there's a whole lot of responsibility. If you decide to get a CCW permit, there's some responsibility. Now, to my young audience, I can't drive it home harder than I'm trying to do it now. There's some responsibilities that come along with this. You know, so we want to go over a couple of do's and don'ts, and since we are talking about CCWs, you know, some of the questions that you may have at this particular time, and you might be thinking about getting a permit. So there's some do's and don'ts in reference to that law being passed. So I'm gonna walk over to the podium and go over a few of those talking points. Thank you, sir. Now, as you may notice, you know, during that particular encounter, and I believe Officer Harper spoke on it as well, is that. All right, thank you. Yeah. As you may notice in that particular encounter, and Officer Harper may have spoke on it as well, is that most of the time, the information about you being a CCW permit holder comes in over radio, and the officer may know that. And by law, you are required to let the officer know as well. Just for some reason, there's a glitch or that information did not come up on his screen, or you might have exited the vehicle a little too fast before you got all the information, whatever may have transpired at that particular time, okay? But it's your job, you know, in order to let the officer know that you are a CCW permit holder, and especially if you have that weapon in your possession or in the vehicle with you. It's important. Now, there are some violations that can take place in reference to that if you don't tell the officer that you have a concealed carry. Unfortunately, it's a first-degree misdemeanor. A first-degree misdemeanor, which you can get up to 6 months in jail or $1,000 fine, and a suspension of your handgun license for up to 1 year. All right. Now, if you spent that time in order to, more than likely, if you decided to get a CCW permit, you know, you decided to do that for your safety. Okay. So, but if you don't follow the proper guidelines, you can have your license suspended. Okay. If a person is stopped by a law enforcement officer and he's carrying it, and you attempt to have some contact with the weapon, if you in the car, you pity-patting around with the weapon, or you not following the instructions, or you reach for the weapon before he gives you the proper instructions, that can be up to a felony. That you're not following instructions and you touching the weapon and not following the officer's guidelines on what he asking of you to do, it can be a felony at that particular point. If a person disregards or just don't comply with what the officer is asking them to do, as far as stepping out of the vehicle, not touching it, or things of that nature, all right, it can be a first-degree misdemeanor as well, and you can lose your license for up to 2 years. Some of the places that are forbidden as far as carrying your weapon into police stations, which would be obvious, sheriff offices, highway patrol posts, places of worship, uh, pl- places that carry a Class D liquor license permit or selling alcoholic beverages, schools, safety zones, school premises, schools activities, and the school bus, and also the property boundary. Those areas are forbidden as far as you being able to carry your concealed weapon. So again, one of the things I want to touch before I turn this scenario over to Officer Harper, the next scenario, is that if you have a permit and you don't have the weapon on you at that particular time, okay, there's some limited things that the officer can to do at that particular time. He don't have to take possession, of course, because the weapon is not there. So there's some other regulations and stipulations that apply, and actually in your particular behalf at that particular point. So again, if you decide to get a permit, responsibilities come along with it. A gun is not anything to play with. I know a lot of people are looking at it for their safety and their protection, but we have to know the law and we have to know the responsibilities, and you have to understand the anxiety that an officer may have when approaching you with and knowingly that you have a CCW permit, and you should understand that. You should understand that. So right here in that particular scenario, we want you to put yourself in the shoes of the officer. All right. So at this particular point, do we want to go right into the scenario, Brother Hopper? Or you want to set it up?
Set it up, Harper. Set it up. Set it up, Harper.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just give you a brief description. Okay, our next scenario, our next traffic stop will involve a traffic violation. Well, also for this officer, there are multiple occupants in the vehicle. What we often find in traffic stops as officers, especially with multiple occupants, is sometimes the occupants get upset. It may be the driver, and it's also the people that are riding with them because of the relationship and some of the histories that society does have with the police. These can be a little challenging for the officer. So what we're going to do in this scenario is we're going to show how an officer should hopefully be able to handle not only the driver of a violator, but possible passengers that may not have a liking to the police, for a better term. So we'll get through the scenario. We may stop, break it down, and then we'll discuss it at the complete end.
Thank you, Harper.
Oh, man, here we go. We get pulled up and don't stop. Keep going.
Come on, let's go.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's right.
Look here. This is not what we're about to do. Y'all gonna shut up. I'm gonna handle this. Y'all gonna be cool how y'all need to be cool.
You get scared of our way.
It ain't about being scared. It's about not being an idiot like you.
Oh, lucky I ain't driving.
What you gonna drive? Your 2 feet? Huh? Left and right?
You didn't do anything.
It don't matter. He stopped you for a reason.
Put your hands on
You
it.
didn't do nothing.
Put your hands up
I
like
ain't
you
even
have.
driving.
I understand. I just for safety, it's okay.
I ain't even
Please
driving.
do that for me.
Bro, what do you ask you to do, my guy? What do you ask you to do?
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry for his ignorance.
It's okay. I'm Officer Harper with the Cleveland Division of Police. I pulled you over because you failed to stop at that top red at Lee in Harvard. Is there any reason for that?
I'm sorry, sir. I didn't see that, but hold on. Give me 1 second. Not being disrespectful.
Whatever.
Bruh, you gonna be calling your auntie Rita in a second.
Boo.
Is
And
your
you gonna be
passenger
going right with
okay?
him.
Are they okay?
Hey,
They're a little upset. What's going on?
they mad because they ain't got their own car. That's what it is. But I apologize
I'm
for their
mad 'cause
ignorance.
the police pulled us over. I don't
Well,
like
sir,
the
just
police.
calm down. You don't have to like me. I'm
You calm
concerned about the
You
safety
calm
of
down.
citizens. Sir, so do you have your license and proof of insurance?
All right.
Sorry,
You have your license and proof of insurance?
it's in my glove. I said, okay,
Okay,
if I reach
would
for
you
it.
mind, yeah, very slowly, would you reach for it, please? Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Morris. All right, can you just sit tight for a minute? I'm gonna just check a few things out and then we'll see where we're gonna go from here.
All right, I got you. Thank you again, officer.
Can we pause it for a second? Discuss where we're going. All right, can I use this mic? Okay.
You don't hear it. Is there my part? Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so what happens in this scenario is there's a traffic. So what happens in this scenario, traffic violation occurred. As an officer, we do our normal routine, which is to identify the vehicle, possibly identify any occupants if we can guarantee or at least see how many occupants are in the vehicle. And in some cases, we may even request a car to back us up. Not necessarily that there's a threat or a danger, but it's a comfort level. It's one officer, there are 3 occupants. I don't know the mindset of the occupants. I don't know what they may have done. They could just be some individuals coming home from a night out, or maybe they could be doing some things a little bit more serious. So as an officer, we may request backup, and it's not to show a force, just to kind of let them know that, you know, we kind of even our numbers out for safety, but it's not to do anything else other than that. As you saw when I approached the vehicle, the rear passenger was a little upset. And that's okay, because people have their feelings about the police, and we have to understand that as an officer. So my duty is to maintain my composure. I have to understand that he's probably upset because he wants to get where he's going. The front passenger was a little upset as well. But what was going good in this is the driver. And the driver was taking control of his passengers, which is very important. Would I say I'd write him a ticket because of his passengers? No, I don't think that's fair, because they're not driving the vehicle. However, as we talked about in the previous bullet points, the golden rule, right? If these individuals are being disrespectful to me, he may suffer because I'm not being disrespectful to them. So as an officer, it's still my duty to maintain my composure and maintain my professionalism. But also, I gave them an opportunity to vent, and I tried to even communicate with the passenger. Hey, you know, why are you upset? You know, maybe it's a brief discussion we could have that kind of eases his feelings. So at this point, I've retrieved the information, and notice when I asked the driver where his information was, he told me where it was, and I slowly allowed him to retrieve that. But I'm watching him, and I'm watching their hand movement. I asked the rear passenger to put his hands on the back of the driver's seat, because that gives me better visibility, especially being 1-on-3. I typically would ask the passenger of the vehicle in the front to also put his or her hands on the dashboard. There's nothing wrong with that. If the police do ask you that, don't become upset. It's just a safety measure. And one of the things we're taught is the hands are the most dangerous part of someone that's going to hurt you. So if I'm asking you just to put your hands where I can see them, that's just a simple request that goes a long way in finishing up this traffic stop. So at this point, I've got his identification and his insurance card. I'm going to go back to my vehicle. I'm going to do my checks, and then we're going to continue this traffic stop. All right, sir, I'll be right back. Radio, can you give me a check on a Sean Morris? Copy, thank you. All right, Mr. Morris, here's your ID back, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate your cooperation. You're doing pretty good as a driver. I'm not going to write you a ticket. I understand that things happen. Maybe you're distracted or whatever, but you have to be a lot more careful when you're going through those intersections, okay? Because it's not always us, it's always the other driver too that we have to be concerned with. I know your passengers were upset, but guys, I appreciate you bringing it down. tone it down a little bit. Again, I'm not here for you to like me, I'm just here to do my job. But I will provide you with the proper respect. All right? So you guys drive safely. Do you need any help getting back out in the traffic?
You can help me with these two idiots.
Well, I wish I could, but you know what? They're your friends, so they're your friends for a reason, right?
There ain't gonna be some walking friends in a second.
Don't do that, because I can't take
Thank
it.
you.
I appreciate that,
Thank
sir.
you.
It's not a problem. I appreciate that,
sorry.
miss.
Thank
I really appreciate that. So, again, you know, all police aren't out here doing some things to hurt you, okay? Just keep that in mind. So take each encounter with each individual, all right?
Please be safe.
Yeah, thank you for that. You drive
All
safe.
right, thank you.
All right, have a good one. Okay, so now we were able to close that traffic stop out. And as you see, I gave the driver a warning. The driver wasn't doing anything overly, you know, he violated the law, which happens. Things happens, mistakes happen. His driving record didn't indicate anything that showed that he was a reckless driver. His passengers, as they have a right to express themselves, did appreciate and became a little bit more receptive of the traffic stop. And I gave him a warning. So what this basically indicates is a lot of times how you bring the energy to the officer will bring that same energy back to you. And because the driver, which is the most important occupant in that vehicle, because he or she is controlling that vehicle, showed a high level of respect. To me, I owed it to that driver to not punish him or her because of the actions of their passengers. But keep in mind, as a passenger, that we have a duty to not put that driver in a negative spot because we aren't controlling that vehicle and we aren't the ones that have ran that light. Or contrary to your opinion, we as officers are trained to observe traffic stops in different ways. And if we see something that we feel is a violation, it's our right to investigate that. So as a passenger, you just have to remain calm and allow the officer to do their job. All right. Thank you very much.
We're going to stop just 1 minute for some questions. And we're going to address these questions. We're going to address these questions to Officer Hampton, who will be coming up to talk about them. These questions have to deal with some anxiety and race relations. So as he gets to the microphone, that is something that has been addressed a number of times with me, yes, on the question. So we're going to answer 2 questions. Mr. Officer Hampton. I have 2 questions from, first I have 2 questions that are from Facebook. And 2 questions from Facebook. Officer Hampton, the first question was, how should you handle a racist or rogue officer?
Well, we know that's a tough situation right there. And we are trained to understand, you know, people's frustration and like Officer Harper said at one time, sometimes you might have to let people vent. But if you get in a situation you're dealing with racial tensions in that particular encounter, as far as the police is concerned, you know, you may, you know, you can't be thin-skinned when when you're being a police officer, because you got to understand that people are upset and things of that nature. So you try to how I generally do in situations where one person is venting, you know, you depends on how you control yourself. You can bring that particular person's level down to yours. You know, if I'm not responding, you know, in the same way that that person is responding, you hopefully can bring that particular person's energy down as well. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, you know. But just name calling and things of that nature is not necessarily a recipe for citation or arrest and things of that. As long as the particular person is following your instructions, you know, I found it as far as personal, because it's a personal decision. You know, I tend to stay on the positive side of that particular encounter and hope my reactions, you know, bring down the level of tension that particular person is experiencing at that particular time.
Thank you. Our next question is, What type of flexibility does an officer have as far as issuing a citation? And we would like any of the officers to answer that question, and then we'll go back to Officer Hampton. Yay.
Okay, so the type of flexibility an officer has, a lot of it depends on the traffic stop itself. There are instances that may require us, or at least allow us to arrest. If you're operating a motor vehicle without any type of ID on you and we can't identify you, that is arrestable. If you're driving suspended, that is arrestable. But as far as the most basic traffic violations, a lot of it's discretionary. It's just based on the officer's feelings, what they feel that whether you should be cited or not. So it's pretty open, especially if the driver's, been maintaining their license and they have proper insurance. It gives us a lot of room to offer you a break. But if you don't have those things in place, then you reduce the less things that you have that you're supposed to have, the less likely we are to be able to give you a break. So keep that in mind.
Thank you, officer. You may stay there.
No problem.
The next question has to do with, what should an individual do if they have prescription drugs in their car that possibly aren't theirs?
This is an interesting one. Let's say, in most cases, hopefully that the drugs are, let's say they're a family member, maybe someone left them into your vehicle. If you get pulled over, especially if the traffic stop becomes more than just a traffic stop, where maybe the officer is inquiring a little deeper, if you know that you have them, express that and let the officer know that these pills are in this vehicle, but also based on who they are. If I possess a prescription bottle, that prescription should have my name on it. I'm not really allowed to have a prescription bottle or any prescription drugs that are not necessarily prescribed specifically to me. So if you have any prescription drugs in your vehicle, I would strongly suggest, if you can't take them out before you move that vehicle, definitely let the officers know, and don't keep them on your person and don't be in possession of them.
Okay, this question is open to any officer. How often do your patrol officers have to get mental health checkups? And are you taught to look for types of signs of internal stress and agitation in the person that you're about to arrest, or yourselves? Are you able to just see the signs of internal stress in yourself, your colleagues, or the assailants?
Want me to
That's
start
open
it,
to
or you
any
wanna-
officer.
Or you want to do it? Okay. All right. I can go for all.
Right. Read that question again.
So first part is, how often do the patrol officers have to get mental health checkups? So we can answer that one first.
Just keep going.
Keep going,
I'll
okay.
try to get it in there.
Okay, and are you taught to look for signs of internal stress within the officers, yourself, your colleagues, and the assailants?
The best way I can explain that, just say if you're on a two-man car and you with your partner, when y'all together so much, you get to know you. It's like you're a family. You get to know you basically know everybody's personal business and all that. Like, your partner gonna start talking to you and letting you know if you got any issues going on. And then you would tell him, hey, you need to go talk to somebody. You can go talk to the supervisor. And that's basically how you can find out if you got any issues going on, or if you're stressed out. You and your partner go in there and talk to the sergeant, whoever, lieutenant, and then it'll go from there. You need to go see the psychologist. So Officer Brown coming up to elaborate.
Well, thank you. Just a little part of the officers. I, for one, am a crisis intervention trained officer with the department. So when we get those call-ups on a crisis, I would go and go to the run. And how I would approach that, these are also very dangerous situations for the officer. So you have to give yourself some space between you and the person in crisis. So how I would do that is I want them to do all the talking. They need to tell me what's going on, and I'm listening to them very carefully. Okay, so I'm asking them, okay, first of all, I'm here to help you. Tell me what's going on today. How are you feeling? That's how I'm going to address them. And after they're talking to me, again, this is a very dangerous situation for officers. It can go from 0 to 60 like that. So again, we have to give them some space to be able to want to talk to us. But again, I, for one, what can I do to help you? All right. And if I'm with a partner, we always have someone for this call, I'm going to do the talking when it comes to this because, say he might not be certified to do this, but I am. So I'm going to be doing all the talking, but I'm going to address that person as I'm here to help you. What can I do to help you? Okay. You tell me, what can I do? And I might be looking at the situation as I'm already seeing them in crisis and this person is going to probably have to go to the hospital to talk to somebody. And then let me take you to the hospital. They may not want to go. So I'm going to, take as long as I can with this person. I'm not going to just try to rush this. If I have to be there an hour, I'm going to be there an hour and I'm going to help them calm down, or her. And I want to give them a choice at the end of this. I want to either take you to hospital to be able to talk to somebody. Okay. Can you let me do that? Why don't you pick the hospital? Do you have a hospital that you want to go to, or a certain doctor that you want to talk to? Or do you have a certain family member? Is there somebody that you need to talk to? So again, we take our time with these calls. Are very dangerous because these people are in crisis and they need help, and we're here to help them. So, Officer Hampton, anything?
Yeah, just to add to that, as far as the officer is concerned, what he would want to do is get as much intel as he can before he even approach it in Officer Brown's situation when dealing with a person or a citizen that has some mental issues going on. In that particular scenario, you want to get as much information up front so you know what you're dealing with. And that generally comes from, it could come from radio that the family has delivered some information when they made the call about the incident, or a family member on scene, updating you on what's going on with the person. Have they been through this particular situation before? All those things are relevant that you need to have in place before you approach the person. And it's a very sticky and a very interesting situation to be in. And you guys need to understand that because for our CIT officers, going through this particular training, it's kind of based on you got to have a good feel for it sometimes. You got to have some good intuition yourself because that particular person, you're reading that whole body language of that individual. You're seeing how they respond to your questions, how they're answering the questions, that particular person might not want 2 or 3 officers around them. You might have to, like I say, back up and give them more space and let them vent. So it's a very, very interesting and it could be very difficult situation for the officers to place themselves in. And then on the side of the officer that we may feel, as Officer Jones explained, you get to know a lot about your partner and some of the officers that you work with. So you tend to know and have a feeling if your partner is experiencing some type of anxiety. Some of the things that you guys may know that the department has been under a decree, and some of the new policies that's been coming out as far as officers is concerned. It's giving more responsibilities to the other officers to let their supervisors know if they're I think one of the fellow officers is experiencing some type of extra anxiety that may cause harm to himself or whatever. So we as fellow officers at times, we would at least try to talk to that particular officer and try to advise them to go, take a few days off and get some help. But there is mechanisms in place for that officer that they may be experiencing some type of personal issues that may therefore spill out to and affect his job performance.
Thank you, Officer Hampton. That was the second part of the question for services for the officers. So I'm going to go a little bit back onto another one. And I would like to know, does a passenger have the right not to answer any inquiries? And we already talked about videotaping earlier, but what about not answering any inquiries to the police? How does that work?
You say the passenger?
Or the passenger, whoever's in the car, if it's the driver, do they have the right to say, I'm not answering your questions? How does that handle? Do they have that right?
You do to a certain degree. See, that is a sticky situation, and it's all based on, the officer, what's going on at that particular time, you see, because you may not know that it could be some other things going on out, around in that particular area where the officer needs to know, who's in the vehicle or what kind of intelligence he may receive on the particular call. So the passenger themselves might think they just getting harassed, but the officer is trying to find out who's in the vehicle. It may be related to some other incident or something may be going on, or, the officer might elect not to. It's not always a part of the golden rule that the officer is going to ask for ID for everybody that's in the vehicle. Sometimes certain situations and circumstances where he may need to ask and know who's in the vehicle. It depends on what's happening at that particular point. So that question is a difficult question. It can be a difficult situation and scenario to deal with. But again, we ask folks just to be patient and understand it's all about officer and officer safety.
Officer Harper?
Just to expound on that a little bit, when you are encountered with police, one of the questions that I'm starting to help citizens understand is ask that officer, are you free to leave? And when you ask that officer, are you free to leave, that puts them in a position of either I have to continue to investigate you or I have to let you go. And if I'm doing just an inquiry type of investigation, I have no probable cause, no real reason to stop you, then I have to let you go. So therefore, you can kind of minimize that by asking them, are we free to leave? Now, that might entail, depending on what that driver is doing, you walking. So understand if you're on the east side of Cleveland, you live on the west side, you might want to consider that before you ask, so you don't get stuck unless the RTA is running. But in all respect, you do have that option of asking, am I free to leave? And that will tell you what that status is of how deep that officer is going into whatever he or she is going into.
Thank you, Officer Harper. That actually leads us to the next. When we were watching the scenario with Officer Morris and yourself, and it acts much like most of the young people we work with, and so it was very nice. Thank you very much. The other question was, well, it's so real, is if my passenger or myself, and it didn't come up, has a warrant, I know I have a warrant, what can I do as a driver, you guys got a warrant, to protect myself? And what if they have drugs that I'm not aware of, especially with so many people claiming they have a marijuana card?
Well, that's a good one. Claiming and having are two different things. So if you're claiming to have that card, you better have it, because there is no, I left it at home. No, it's like having a CCW and leaving that card at home. It's not going to fly. But as far as warrants go, when we run someone and we find out you have a warrant, again, there are certain type of warrants that may indicate that we can let you go with certain exceptions. It's not always. As far as the passenger goes, that would depend on my interaction with that passenger. If I have no reason to encounter or think that passenger has done anything, then most likely they're not going to get, I don't see the passenger say, hey, I got a warrant. And, so if I don't have any real reason to investigate that passenger any further other than this traffic stop that we're dealing with, then chances are they'll go free. What I do suggest, if you do know you have a warrant, whether you're driving, walking, you just know you have one, call the clerk's office, call the city of Cleveland or down to the county clerk's office, and they can set you up another court date. They can help assist you with getting that warrant cleared. So a lot of times, if you've missed a court date, if you didn't show up, if you didn't pay a ticket, whatever the cause is that got you that warrant, call the clerk's office and let them establish you a new court date, and you can get that off of your record, and you're not walking, looking over your shoulder.
Just wanna elaborate on that just a little bit.
Come on here.
In that particular situation too, and to our youth that may be watching this, take a few precautions about who you let in your vehicle.
Yeah.
It's okay to ask your friends, hey, anything going on with you? Anything I need to know, before getting into your vehicle, because you may be driving your vehicle, or you could be driving grandma's vehicle or your parents' vehicle. And so you risk your vehicle being towed. At times, people get tight-lipped on that. If something illegal was found in the car, they wind up towing, and then maybe all the occupants wind up being taken downtown. So it's okay. It's perfectly fine. And you ain't no punk, okay? By asking, and talking to the folks who's getting in your car, ask, hey, man, is everything all right with you, And like I say, if you have all your proper documentation, far as driving, you got your license, and you got your proof of insurance, and you may keep your registration with you. You'll encounter a good percentage of the time, even if you get a ticket, it would turn it and continue to be in a positive light. So make sure your documentation is there, and try to obey all the traffic laws. And that limits the possibility of you getting pulled over. So ask somebody, and talk to your people who's far as getting into your car. Know them.
So for my young people, that means don't jump out the car and run. So, okay, so, and old people too. So, I don't want to see you on the news. So I'm going to ask Officer Brown this one, even though she may not want to answer it. This one was part of the other officers training with mental health. They want to know, does officers participate in mindful activities such as deep breathing and stress relief when they're coming up to something? Are you taught that to desensitize yourself for the situation?
Obviously, being a police officer, there's a lot of stressful situations that we get involved in. I'm very thankful for one, our city does, our department does have somebody in resources that we can talk to. We have a doctor, a stress doctor within the city. And we also have training. We have like yoga classes that we can go and participate in to reduce that stress. I, for one, am not ashamed or embarrassed to say that I have been stressed many times on this job and had to utilize our doctor. And I love her. The breathing techniques were great. And I work on that daily in my daily life, not just on the job, but also at home. I'm trying. I'm not a perfect person. But as officers, this is a very difficult job. And it could be very stressful. One situation can be very stressful for me and maybe not for another officer. So I might have to utilize that. But yes, we do. We have that. Anything else?
Thank you. This next question is for Officer Morris.
There you go.
And I'm asking it because he's so cool and he got it going on. He just don't know it. So come on. I mean, I just love that. You're gonna be catching Rita in a minute. I was like, whoa, brother went all the way back. So if the driver is a juvenile, does the encounter change as opposed to with your encounter with an adult?
Honestly, no, because at the end of the day, you have a license just like an adult, so you're basically equal. Now, if he has a temp license, then you need that adult, so that changes things. But you do kind of, as far as juveniles, you kind of got a soft spot for them, as long as they're respectful, because everybody was a kid, your mistakes, but through and through, you still keep the same protective measures. Everything is the same.
Okay, stay there. That's good. Stay there. Okay. So we're trying to restore, part of this is our restoration between the community and our police officers. And we have covered all the age braces. Thank you, with you sitting here. We've covered the bases and the different styles of the people that we serve. how would you look at us as far as helping to restore the relationship with the police and the community from your perspective, each of you?
Honestly, that's easy for me because I'm always in the community. I still live in Cleveland. I I coach at the high school I went to, so I'm around kids all day. They know what I do. I constantly see people. They say, "What's up, Sean?" Like, you lie, you do something to me on the street, you probably get beat up by the thugs that you would think hate me. I'm just being honest, but I have a good relationship with the community. Like Harper said before, we do a student academy, so we're involved in the school, so they get to see you outside of that police aspect of things, because you get to have. I try to have real conversations with people, and that's the biggest thing that they respect. Like, I'm not gonna approach you like I'm an officer, but at the end of the day, I'm still Sean, and I feel like a lot of people in the community respect that.
Thank you.
How old are you?
30.
You need to say that on TV. They need to say that live.
I mean, I know I look about 17, but
I'm gonna elaborate
We
on that
really
too.
appreciate that. Would anybody else like to comment on that?
I'm gonna comment on that. Like Officer Moore said, what a law officer have to do is just really you get to know people in your neighborhood. It doesn't hurt to stop and say, "Hey, what's going on? How you doing?" You know, and once you get that rapport, even with young and old, they get to know you when you come in the neighborhood. Oh, he cool. He can speak to you, blase, blase. And like me, like he said, like Officer Moore said, I stay in the city of Cleveland too. Everybody know the police. They know where I live at, and they had the utmost respect for me. You know, you have to get out and just talk. Riding up and down the street and not seeing anybody, they don't get to know you. It's just basically communication and talking to people. That's all. And they get to know you. So
They stole all my answers, so. But that is the basis of restoring our relationship with the community. But there is something I did want to touch on, and it may pop up in another question. And I think it's important for everyone that sees the police to understand this. As an academy instructor, we have been teaching bias-free policing for about 3 years and ongoing. And that's very important because it gives us 4 principles to create an environment for you. As police officers, we should be neutral. We need to give the citizens a voice. Sometimes it's just you guys just want to be heard, and we have to be trustworthy and respect these policing. And when you incorporate those 4 principles back into how we police, it creates an environment that the citizens can trust us. The main reason that the relationship is strained is probably the trust. And so being transparent and doing these things creates an environment that people can believe in the police and trust the police, which therefore shortens that bridge that we're facing. So when you add our own personal opinions, values, I would say a vast majority of police officers are at least from the city of Cleveland and have spent the majority of their lives there. And many of them do continue to still live in the same neighborhoods they patrol. So when you incorporate all of this into, on top of the education that we have to provide ourselves to better police for the community, because we are public servants and it's our duty to take care of the community. I think that that will go a long way in strain in creating reducing the strain of the relationship.
They keep stealing everybody's answers, really. Yeah, no, but really, again, we are from the Bureau of Community Relations, and, and this is something that we take pride in, and we're a part of restoring that particular and mending those particular relationships, because that's what it's all about. There's a paradigm shift across the country that's dealing with community policing, and it's in the up front and foremost mind of far as our chief and public safety safety directors and things of that nature, about restoring it, because it's all about restoring, especially in light of what's been going on across the country, and it's more prevalent now than ever before, that we need to do things and put programs together that actually make you guys understand some of the things that we go through, and we need to have an open ear and mind to some of the things that may be troubling you. So it's an exchange. This whole thing is about an exchange. You learn from us, we learn from you, and that's what it's all about. And that's how you restore relationships, because sometimes, and that's what we was going through the scenarios about, with letting you see into the mind's eye of the officer, so you can better understand what we may be going through. How Officer Brown talked about the stress that we may be going through. And we understand the anxiety and the stress that you may be going through as well. So it's an exchange, it's an understanding, and we are working to try to do a better job of understanding, because police, the whole institution has been going through a change and an understanding. And because you guys quite frankly, you stood up and say, hey, we want some change, we want to see some change in how policing is being done. And I think the Cleveland Police Department is doing what we can to answer to that, just trying to do a better job in mending those relationships. And here at the Bureau of Community Relations, we have 14 to 17 officers that are doing that very same thing. If you want to contact us, like we're doing this presentation here, if you want us to come, and of course, COVID is going on at this particular time, but once things get back to normal, if you have different programs that you want us to be a part of, we're more than happy. You contact our Commander Johnson, Johnny Johnson, or Sergeant Higgins or Sergeant Flores, and in the Bureau of Community Relations, and and get your program on our schedule. And we'll do the best we can to try to come out there and talk to you guys and fill you in with more information. But as far as I'm concerned, this particular job, I came on the job to do that very thing. I never wanted to be a police when I was younger. That wasn't my go-to number one thing, is to become a police officer. But as time went on, and I knew the anxiety in my community, so I said I wanted to do something that mends those relationships and let our community know that there is officers out here that is concerned about their needs and what's going on.
We are so thankful to the officers, but I do have one final question, and I think it's directed to Officer Brown. How do we file a complaint in the city of Cleveland? If I have some sort of dissidence going on, how do I file a complaint that will be investigated?
Great question, Pastor. What we have in the city now, this is mandatory, all right? And our citizens need to know that, you have rights, and your rights are very important to us. Every law enforcement officer in the city now that's out driving and they're in their zone cars have to carry in their zone cars what is called a citizen complaint form. We call it OPS. It stands for Operations Office of Professional Standards, excuse me. And we have a complaint form, and this is it here. It's a brief, you probably can't see that, but all officers have to have this, all right? So if you're not happy with the officer or officers that came out to your house or had to respond to you, and you felt maybe they were rude, they didn't help you, say, these are examples, maybe they didn't want to give you a report, but you insisted that I want a report, and these officers just made you feel uncomfortable, and they didn't seem to want to help you. It is your right to say, hey, you know what, I'm not happy with the situation, so I want to file a complaint. That officer, and now don't forget, all officers have to wear the wearable camera system, so we do have a camera on us, and it's recording that entire encounter with the citizens. But we have to give you a complaint form for you to fill out. Maybe you don't want to fill it out with that officer. Maybe he just ticked you off so much that you don't even want to talk to him anymore. You have all right to call back and ask for a supervisor, or tell that officer, you know what, I demand a supervisor to come out here on scene. They have to get a supervisor to come out on scene so they can talk to you. And then you can go over the complaint that you have with that officer or with that supervisor. Maybe you don't want to do that. You can always go up to any local police department, walk in and say, hey, I want to file a complaint, and you can do that too as well. Again, we're here to assist you and help you with, everything that you call us for. But again, you have rights. All right, and if you're not happy with us, ask for a complaint. We don't want it to go that way. We want to try to accommodate you in every way possible. But we also want you to understand too, every call when we come out is not a report. There might be a civil situation going on between you and a neighbor or you and a landlord. And we might advise you to go to landlord-tenant court, for example. But you still are not happy with it. Again, you can ask for a complaint form. You can ask for a supervisor and we can fill this out. And it'll go to this division, and a citizen review board, along with some officers, will review that and make contact with you. That good, Joe?
Thank you, Officer Brown.
You're welcome.
Now, we're going to have one more spot by Officer Hampton about our holiday celebrations and shopping. So he's going to give a little explanation for that because we do have a number of seniors that are on, and some of us, much like myself, have difficulty with that.
Okay, well, like they say, this is the season. And on more than one respect, this is the season. And, we want to leave you guys with a few tips that possibly, that deals with holiday tips and also deals with, safety in general. Officer Jones and a few of the officers is going to, chime in as well. So I just want to go over a few tips, when going out there. You have, for the use of better words, predators out there, and you have people that prey on the innocent, the weak, the elderly, and things of that nature. So you have to be mindful out there. And this is the time where a lot of those robberies and things like that escalate. So we want to give you and present you a few tips. We want to leave you with something that you can take with you as well. Keep your purse zipped and keep your wallet. And maybe you may want to try putting your wallet in your front pocket, because that's why I carry mine in my front pocket. So keep your purse zipped as you're walking around so people can see the contents of, inside your purse. And sometimes I've seen people walking around and they got money hanging out their purse and it's all open, and it's very inviting for someone who might have ill intentions. Travel in groups when you're shopping. Don't go out there by yourself. If you can, take a few other people with you, while you're traveling, even while you're visiting, even while you're, going out for entertainment, have somebody with you. Keep your purse close to your body. Some people have it strapped sideways across them, and close to their body. So you can do that. Keep it close to your body. Something that, I put down here that what I procedure that I do. As far as going to the, sometimes you might run a little short of money and you got to go to the ATM machine while you're out there shopping. Okay. So be very mindful when you go to the ATM machine. If you're in your vehicle and you're pulling up to the ATM, what I do one function or one transaction at a time. As I'm approaching the particular area where the ATM machine is, I'm looking at my surroundings. I'm looking at my surroundings. If there's any, hopefully they have trimmed any bushes or anything like that. There may be some obstructions there, prohibiting you from seeing all around you. So I look at my surroundings before I pull up. Okay, when it was my turn to get to the machine, I put my card in and I take a look around. All right. I put my PIN numbers in. I take a look around. When he asks me where, I want my transaction to go, check, whatever. And that's, in essence, one transaction at a time, one function at a time. Okay. Don't get too involved and encapsulated into what you're doing and not being mindful of your surroundings, So one function at a time, check out your surroundings. Okay. Take notice of anyone who might be sitting in vehicles around as you're approaching. Going into the shopping mall, you see somebody sitting in the vehicle, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. All right. And then on your way coming back, pay attention to that. If that person is still sitting in the vehicle, be mindful of that, because there's some things, there's been a lot of high-tech scams that have been going around that, so you have to be very, very mindful of that, and one last thing, well, a couple more things, and I'm gonna let you go, and let Officer Jones take it. Yeah, but far as a business is concerned, all right, a business is concerned. You say you've been doing a whole lot of shopping, okay? Um, you know, it's okay to possibly ask that business manager or whatever to escort you to your vehicle. You know, you just spent some money with them. You know, so hey, if you feel a little uncomfortable, or you may be able to look out the window and see that person still sitting in that vehicle, and you a little uncomfortable about that, ask them. Hey, say, you have anyone here? You know, maybe it's the young guy that was doing the stock or whatever. You have him walk with you to your vehicle. You know, all right, and you always want to try to park in lit areas. You know, where you can see and the people can see you. You know, have your keys already ready. You know, when you approach the vehicle. Don't take your attention off of what's going on in your surroundings, and you fumbling with your keys and things like that. So have your keys in hand, ready to go, where you can make a quick move into your vehicle. You know, because people are watching. You know, people are watching, and these are dire times where people, you know, maybe, you know, in order for a crime to happen, the circumstances have to be available for them to take advantage of you. Don't sit your packages on the car seat. you know, you know, if you're going from one store to the next store, before you get to the next store, put it in the trunk. You know, put it, out of plain view. And you know how we do far as the house is concerned. You know, we got that big screen TV, or we got that whatever entertainment system that we now you just advertising everybody on the street that look what I got. You know. So take the box and cut it up into little pieces and put it on the trash. Don't put the knife. I know some of us might like to boast a little bit and show everybody here. I just got a 75-inch. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm balling here. You know what I'm saying? All right. But no, you know, you don't want to do that because it's inviting. Because all officers can tell you right now that, you know, back in the day when we had that big old floor model, folks weren't lifting up that big old floor model and running down the street with it. But now the technology has made it very easy for them to go in and take 2 or 3 TVs out your house, because those little flat screens are very light, okay? Very light, okay? And don't overload yourself with some packages as well. You know, if you walking with a whole bunch of packages and you walking like this, you again is inhibited you from seeing your surroundings. So those are some of the things that I wanted to briefly cover with you. You know, have a cell phone in case you need to call for emergency. You know, when going and when traveling, okay. You know, I know social media is a hit, but you don't have to let everybody know where you're going and where you're at and what you're doing. Okay, so you know that would be undesirable. That may be just following you and no. And sometimes it's your friends can do it not knowingly. You know, hey, my friend is just done. Oh, really? And for our young folks, I got to say this before for our young folks, you know, be mindful and careful who you bring into your house. Okay, you know, your friends, you know, all these officers up here can tell you right now, you know, because we have break-ins that go on, and it looked like a person just knows exactly where to go and what to get what they want out y'all, because you know why? Because you let them in. So when your parents be asking you on who you are letting in y'all and who your friends are, this is the reason why. Because they know you got that new game, that new play. What is that? PS5 or something that they I don't know nothing about it, but I'm saying the new game set that is out, and you around there bragging on social media, this that you're setting yourself up for some possible troubles at that particular time. All right. So again, we want you to be safe. All right, and we want you to be mindful of some of the things. I think Officer Jones may touch on a few of the things, because there's a lot of scams that are going on out here, and they tend to target our elderly. Officer Jones.
I was about to finish off on the senior safety. But I'm gonna touch on some things on that, on the safety when you out shopping. What a lot of females have the tendency to do is when they get to their car, they like to take their packages and organize them in their car. throw them packages in the car, get in your car, lock your door, start up and leave. And
Thank you.
that's better now. All right. And also, if you're driving, never park next to vans. When you drive in your car, because you don't know, when you park next to that van, somebody can be sitting in that van waiting you to walk to the car and snatch you in there. And no one knows what happened. And also, if you leave to go shopping, let somebody know. And far as what Officer Hampton touched on, far as with purse, when my grandmother was living, she carried a little bitty wallet. And she put everything in it that she needed. And she would carry a purse, but it'd be full of newspaper. And I will always ask her when I was growing up, why did you carry that little wallet and where did you put it at? She told me it was her pocketbook up here. And that's what she kept all her important stuff. She said, because somebody take my wallet, my purse, they ain't getting nothing but a purse full of paper. So, and like Officer Hampton said, you got to be mindful of that. And if you riding a bus or anything, always try to sit closer to the driver or near the exit, because if anything jumps off, you're able to get off that bus. I had a lot, but Officer Hampton basically took everything from me and leave me with anything, you know. So, do you want to do the scams? So, that's good. Okay, thank you.
We wanted to thank all the officers that have participated today and all of the technical staff that has been here at St. Paul. And so we thank Officer Donna Brown, Patrol Officer Lynn Hampton, Patrol Officer Anthony Jones, Patrol Officer Anthony Harper, and Patrol Officer Sean Morris. We also want to thank the hierarchy of the police department from Calvin Williams to Commander Johnson. And so it's been our delight to interact with this community policing. As a side note, I went to college with one of the commanders, Drummond. Is he still around? Deputy Chief. Oh, he grew. Grew. Okay. But anyway, I went to college with him a few years ago. But again, we just wanted to thank all of you. We wanted to thank our technical crew for their kindness, our trustees, and all the officers here at St. Paul. So again, this will be broadcast infinitum on YouTube, our YouTube channel, and Facebook channels. And so again, we wanted to extend the best holiday wishes. We wish you to be COVID-free. We wish our officers in our communities to be safe and sound in their interaction with the communities that they serve. Again, on behalf of St. Paul AME Church, Reverend Michelle and the entire staff, we bless you in the holy name of Jesus. This is our prayer. Thank you.